people off against each other, divide and misrule.
And I'm very sorry to hear about her aunt. Will she be straight and honest with the British citizens when she talks about a national lockdown? Isn't it the reality, if you read the Sage paper, they say it might take multiple circuit breakers to keep this virus at low levels? Isn't that the reality? And will she be clear about the impact that would have on jobs and businesses in this country?
You see, the honourable member invites me to be clear and honest, and the one thing that probably most people know is I tell it how it is, and I've always have. And I can be clear and honest with the honourable member that the Prime Minister, plan as it currently stands, will not protect the people of Greater Manchester and will plunge us into more poverty. We've seen the evidence that says that, and I can promise the honourable member and honourable members across this House, the Labour Party will always put the people first and the protection and security of the people first. I ask the honourable member to get the Prime Minister to do the same thing instead of playing party politics with people's lives and people's livelihoods. Today, this House can vote for a fair deal for all and to end these political games. No more will the House Secretary have to tour the country like a pound shop Noel Edmonds announcing deal or no deal. And they can honour their own promises that every worker facing hardship on the job support scheme will get at least 80% of their previous income. Because what is good enough for the office worker in the City of London is good enough for the caterer in the City of Manchester. What was good enough for the whole of the country in March is good enough for the Midlands and the North today. We're trying to hold them to their own promises, Madam Deputy Speaker. Businesses need consistency and that promise honoured. The Prime Minister told the House on the 14th of October, whatever happens, a combination of the job support scheme and the universal credit will mean that nobody gets less than 93% of their current income. Then he said those on low incomes will get at least 80% of their income. Perhaps he can tell that to the waitress in my constituency who earn £9 an hour on a 32-hour week serving in a central Manchester bar that has now closed. The Resolution Foundation has shown that she will end up with less than 70% of that wage under the government's current plan. So the government is telling my constituent to survive on less than the minimum wage for months, because the government can't tell us when an area will leave Tier 3 and how these restrictions will be lifted. Yeah, happy give way.
I'm very grateful to her for giving way and thank her for the case she's making. Is she interested, as I am, that not a single one of the interventions that she's faced from the Conservative side has actually been relevant to the motion that we're debating? They all seem to be dragging us back on to the Labour Party policy, rather than actually standing up for the financial settlement that they're offering to Manchester and that we know will be going to so many other areas. So can she help me in inviting them to actually speak about the 80% that we're trying to ensure is in some of the most impoverished people, some of the most impoverished workers' pockets, rather than trying to change this debate into the one they want to have?
I thank the honourable member for his contribution, and I'll go a little bit further and compliment some of the members opposite who have stood up as part of Greater Manchester, and I will be incredibly disappointed if what I've seen over the last 24-hour results in it becoming a party political fight. Because in Greater Manchester, despite what the Prime Minister and the House Secretary was trying to suggest, we were united in trying to support our citizens across the conurbation in doing the right thing, bringing the virus rate down and supporting our economy. I hope we can continue to do that. I hope we don't get distracted by messages that are not in regards to this motion. And I absolutely hope the Prime Minister does the right thing, because this is not just about Greater Manchester. This is coming to a town near you. So many areas now, the R number is increasing. So many areas are in Tier 2. So many areas are going to go into Tier 3. So this is a marker to ensure that our economy survives through these problems.
On that very point about coming to a town near you, well, it's coming to cities and towns in the Sheffield City region, has been announced today. Can we say that the package of assistance is totally inadequate? It is nothing like the leaders and the mayor asked for. It is exactly the same as being offered to there. It's a standard package. It's not locally negotiated, it's a standard package. As the leader of Rotherham said, they put lots of civil servants into a room with us to tell us what we couldn't have. That's actually what's been happening in the negotiations.
I thank the Honourable Member for his insight, and many of the local leaders who I've heard from have said that it's felt like they've been blackmailed into taking and pressurised into taking a deal. And Greater Manchester and the Mayor of Greater Manchester wasn't just trying to arbitrarily get more than somewhere else. We put a package together based on the needs of our city, based on the needs of our conurbation, based on the needs of our lowest paid and those businesses that needed the support. It wasn't a bargaining chip to get this or that. It was about making sure that there was a floor that meant that people were given the support that, by the way, this government promised. This government promised that support, and we're just asking them to keep to their promise.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Does she agree with me that it's grossly unfair that whilst the Prime Minister reportedly is complaining about not being able to live off 150k a year, he's expecting my constituents in Nottingham and all of our constituents in this House to live off 2/3 of the minimum wage unless a proper economic settlement is provided?
Yeah.
I thank my honourable friend for her contribution, and you know, people might grunt on the opposite benches, but the honourable member was a care worker like myself before coming into Parliament and knows exactly how people on the minimum wage feel, and I commend her for standing up for her constituents and not leaving them behind like many members opposite seem to be doing now. Even with 2/3 wage support under the Job Support Scheme extension, it's only available, Madam Deputy Speaker, to businesses legally required to close. Someone who works for a firm that is not required to close, but whose business is severely impacted as a result of the restrictions, for example, a brewery supplying pubs which have to close, gets absolutely nothing.
On that point, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend who is making a very excellent contribution and highlighting the points. Would she agree with me that much of the debate is around Tier 3 support and not to say that Tier 2 actually have no support whatsoever, emphasising the point she makes?
I thank my honourable member for his intervention, and I absolutely agree. And the honourable member opposite who keeps chuntering, you had your chance, mate. Let other people in. Madam Deputy Speaker, for hundreds of years, Mancunians have been told to know our place, but we've never listened. From the People's History Museum, the Mechanics Institute, our science and industry and women's suffrage, we will not be told what our place is, and we will not be bullied into taking it. We are proud of our history and proud of our collective contribution to our great country, and determined to build a great future together. But this is not just about Greater Manchester. This is about all of us. We will not be picked off one by one, offered the crumbs when we helped bake the loaf. We deserve a fair slice, and our people deserve a government willing to protect them, to do as the Chancellor had promised, whatever it takes. In recent days, it has been Lancashire, Liverpool and Greater Manchester. Next week and in the weeks ahead, it will be communities in other parts of the country that find themselves in Tier 3. If the government is prepared to willfully inflict so much harm on its own people in the middle of a pandemic in one part of the country, then they will do it to people elsewhere as well. We are staring down the barrel of a bleak winter because the government have lost control of the virus. Infections are rising. Hospital admissions are rising. Deaths, tragically, are rising. The testing system is collapsed. People and business across the country will be anxious that they won't be able to make ends meet and put food on the table. Our motion today will ensure a fair national deal for the country, a vote of this House on it, and the government's own promises to workers kept. Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend this motion to the House.
The question is, no, don't heckle when I'm on my feet. The question is, as on the order paper, I call Steve Barclay to move the amendment.